everyone, welcome to our channel. I'm Kate.
And I'm Stephanie.
And together with you, we're Three Heads. Today, we're talking about Google searches. Every teacher who's going to plan a new unit turns to good old Google.
First, before you go anywhere else.
Why not? Why wouldn't you save yourself a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, and see what's out there?
Even if you don't use most of it, it's a starting place.
It can help you think. It can inspire brilliance. But sometimes you go to Google and Google turns up nothing. Not nothing that you like, because that happens relatively
That's kind of what we're
frequently.
talking about on the podcast this week.
Turns up nothing. Nobody appears to have made a lesson on this topic or on this text ever and posted anything about it online.
I think the worst is if you try to teach a new poem and all you get are copies of the poem over and over and over, and you're like, no, I got that.
Makes you want to cry a little bit. Why did I try to do something different?
Especially if you're like, I think I know what it means, but I want a little help.
I thought I could go to the internet and it would help me. It reminds us what our students feel like. So that's what we're talking about today. What happens when you go to the internet and internet turns up nothing in terms of other lessons or units that teachers have done on this particular text? What do we do? It's happened to us quite a few times, as Stephanie mentioned, with poems. Lots of times when you try to do something new or you try to do something different, something that isn't what is sort of generally accepted as we all teach this in high school, you can often hit a dead end on your first return. So, what do we do?
Well, one thing you can do is go through your files. What do you have from a different book that you could use? What's kind of like a project or a format? That's how we got around poetry a lot of times, is we'd have kind of a standard way of addressing a poem that we could kind of insert any poem. But do you have a project that you could repurpose? Did you find a project online that maybe looks really cool? It's not about this book, but you could make the project be about this book. So sometimes that can be a good place to start, just because at least you have something to work from.
Yeah. Consider also going to the textbook publisher, see what they have, depending on the way they were marketing the book. If they were marketing it toward a YA audience, chances are that they thought about doing something, whether it's sort of like book club discussion questions that can sort of get you thinking, maybe look to blog posts. I know for a couple of different things, we've just cherry picked from blog posts in order to put something together that at least gave us enough that then we were sort of like, okay, we can take it from here.
And I think this works for YA books, but it also works for if you have like an upper level class and you're doing like adult books or whatever. I think that can be, book clubs are a great resource, and blog reviews. That was the first time we taught The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Now you can find all kinds of stuff, but the first time we taught it, it was new. And so I remember combing through blog posts for anything to like latch onto of like, what is there to say about this book? And turns out there's a lot, but I needed a little boost.
Sometimes it's just, I know for myself, like I'm just not feeling confident that I have a good idea or that I know where this should go, or I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm focusing on the right thing.
Or going deep enough, like it's hard to, I get nervous too, thinking, like I don't know what to say about this.
If the book has been a book for Oprah's book club or Reese's book club, that's helpful.
It really is. And we never would have expected this is what we were going to use it for. But during the pandemic, when we were doing distance learning, we were trying to find prose excerpts that our AP students could write about that weren't already on the internet in excessive, like like all the College Board prompts, we were like, they could easily Google an essay about this.
Yeah.
And so we were like, what, do I have to like go through all the books and find passages myself? And so we ended up pulling them from, I think it was from Oprah's book, from Oprah and Reese. We would go through and just, they put samples of their books, and those are of enough literary merit that there's like a richness in them to have students write about. And so that worked really well.
If they were good enough to be the pick for drawing your attention for Oprah and Reese, good enough for us. What you can also do if you're struggling to find anything, and Stephanie sort of alluded to this, is think, okay, can I choose to focus on a skill rather than focus on the text itself? Really, that's what the powers that be want us to be doing in our shift to the Common Core. It was sort of like, well, the text is just a vehicle for you to teach a particular skill. So maybe fall on that. Okay, what skill can I teach? Or what element of literary analysis can I focus on? If you're thinking, wow, this book seems like it could have a lot of different themes, then maybe that's what you want to focus on. Or, whoa, we have a lot of character development here. Maybe I want to look at how a character's development influences theme. So consider focusing on it in that way. Now, granted, you're not going to have the fun projects of let's track the journey up the river, that kind of thing. But you are going to be able to have it be very meaningful and practical in terms of what you're able to accomplish.
And you can certainly find a lot of starting places on the internet where it's like character development, theme analysis, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
If you get to the point where you're like, I can't, there's nothing, and you have to write your own guided reading questions, which, I recommend adding in a few of your own anyway. If you can find it online, so can your students. So it's kind of nice to like add in a couple that like the answers aren't on the internet. Anyway, a couple things to keep in mind. We've talked about this a lot. One is know your end product first. I think we used this more when we were editing. We used to give our students like 50 questions for a book because it was like, well, we want them to understand everything.
And then, it's all important.
And then it was like, well, this is a ridiculous amount of work. And so we would kind of look at what are the essay prompts we're going to use. Let's pull out the questions that don't point to that. I'd also say read the whole book before you write your questions. I know it's tempting to not do that, but I know when I've looked at other people's materials that I've been trying to repurpose, sometimes I'll be like, none of these questions are important. Like it's like something that gets mentioned in one chapter and then never again. And so it is helpful to kind of know where's the book gonna go, because that might be a great simile on page 4, but like, cool. And so I think it can be really helpful just to like know where the story's gonna go.
Or you might be sort of following the direction that the author wants you to take, but that's purposely misleading you, and you're thinking like, I'm just a couple of days ahead of these kids, and
then you finish the book and you're like, oh dear.
The other thing that you can do, and I would say this is sort of like your approach of last resort, just because it's going to be difficult to keep everything practical. And we are very much proponents of being practical about what you're doing. Keep things more open-ended, more discussion-focused to see sort of where the conversation takes us, because sometimes where the conversation takes you is really interesting and meaningful, and you can come up with something really good. But that's putting a lot of onus on the interaction that you're going to have with your students to produce something good.
It tends to work better in an AP class.
But
not always.
Jane Eyre, I'm looking at you.
And I don't like doing that because it's stressful for me to not know where we're going to go. Just in life, I don't like that. But in teaching, I like to know, like, I'm the captain of this ship. I know where we're going to go. I know where I'm guiding you. So it is really stressful to be like, I don't know, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But that is really kind of the approach that we took with the road ultimately. Is it's funny when I look back at the first like PowerPoint we made to guide discussion, it's very like literary term based or like open-ended questions where we're like, this seems like an important quote. What do y'all think about that? And as we taught it over the years, we started to develop kind of our interpretation of the text. We started to be like, okay, well, who cares what the like irony of this one word was? That doesn't matter. Get rid of that. And so we started then to be able to frame the discussion to have a direction, but we needed those first couple of years of talking the book out with other people in order to be able to get to that point.
Yeah. So can be meaningful. Try to keep it as your last resort.
It's just stressful.
Your anxiety level will come down to its manageable level. We hope that you found this to be helpful. It probably is not exactly what you wanted. You were like, I wanted to know the search terms to find something that doesn't exist.
Where
on
is
the
the
internet.
secret closet where you keep all of it?
But we have found these methods to be helpful when we have been in those dead-end situations with our Google searches. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.